What's up guys, and welcome back to another video here on Full Throttle. My name is Charlie, and today I'm going to be doing something that's just one of those common problems with Zs. I don't have the issue with my car right now because I already repainted mine, but I'm going to be repainting these ones so I can use them in the future if I get another car to flip. Alright guys, so this is pretty much what it's supposed to look like right here. This is after going over it once, and I haven't used primer before. I just got done sanding this with, I think it was a 150 grit. So it's pretty scratched up. I don't want to lay any primer with this like this yet. I'm going to go down to 400 grit here, and then and I've been wet sanding. You can see there's a little bit of water right here on the table. But so I've been wet sanding this with 150, and I've taken it down to about here. I've just been feeling inside of here, making sure that there's none of that leftover black. It's like a rubbery material that they put on these bezels. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start sanding it with this 400 grit just to even it out a little bit. I don't want any deep scratches from the 150 grit on here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay primer. And I've never laid primer before on these. I've always just laid the paint after I take it all the way down. And I usually finish out with about 800 grit, but instead this time I'm going to go with 400 grit. And then I'm going to lay primer after I clean it, of course, and then I'm going to lay primer on it, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to wet sand it just a little bit with 800 grit so I can see how it turns out this time. Because in the past I've had a little bit of problems with right in here. There will be little areas where it doesn't get completely sanded because it's hard to sand in here, and it'll leave like a little groove or it'll leave something. So I'm trying to eliminate anything like that with the primer here. These are the other pieces that I'm going to be doing, and they're all scratched up. They'll look like that. So I'm going to be starting on this one next, and then I'm going to move to these. And I want to get all of these done at the same time, so that way when I do get another car in here, that I can just throw these on instead of wasting time painting them. When I have a flip car, I don't have to waste any time. So all I have to do is paint these now, since I've got nothing really else to do. The whole shop is pretty much cleaned up. That car is out of here, and there's really not much for me to do right now. I'm just waiting on bidding on another car. So I'm going to get to wet sanding and show you guys how I do this. So now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start taking this down with 400 grit. I already went over it with the 150 like I said earlier, and I'm just going to start smoothing it out so that way I can lay some primer on it. Now, the most difficult part to get to is in here, but you should pay special attention to inside of here, because this is the part that looks like the worst after you paint. If you don't get down in here and you don't take care of all the little grooves and ridges in here, inside of where the master window switch goes. Alright. So all of this black on here is not, all of this black on here is not the actual stuff that they painted on here. This is the plastic. So you have a black layer, and then you have this primer layer, then you have the plastic. So you sand down past all of that rubbery paint that they sprayed on here, and then you get down to this primer. And I usually try to take a lot of the primer off, but this time I'm going to try to re-primer it and see how that turns out. So I just used 400 grit and I wet sanded the whole thing, went over it again. I'm going to go over it with some of this 99.9% alcohol. I don't know if the 99.9 really matters. You can probably use 70% or whatever that you can get at your grocery store, but this is just what I have. So I'm going to go over it with this, get all the greases and oils off of it from my hands, and anything residual left over from the paint that they painted, and in case I missed anywhere, and then I'm going to go over it with some primer. Alright guys, so this is how the second one turned out. Just like the other one, this is the worst part of sanding this whole thing because it's the hardest to get into. But I got pretty much all of the rubbery material that was in there. And don't forget this little spot right here. It still has it on the inside like ridges. And there's this tab right here that's on the top. Just be careful not to break that off. I broke one off before when I was holding it, when I was sanding it, because you're usually putting a decent amount of pressure on here when you're sanding them, because this rubbery stuff doesn't come off as easily as you might think. Alright guys, so what I'm actually going to try to do with this one is I'm going to try to use a little bit of heat on it. So I'm going to use a heat gun and see if this like makes the rubber stuff like bubble up. That way I can just peel it off. It'll be maybe easier to take off. I don't know. I've never tried this before, but I'm going to give it a try. It's kind of like a trial and error thing, so if I mess up, then you guys know what not to do. You can see how the top up here, of course, I mean, I didn't know what I expected. I thought it would come off with a little bit less heat, but it didn't. It did ripple up down here. Alright guys, so since I messed this up right here, it's all warped at the top. I'm not even going to try to repaint this. I'm just going to throw it away. I thought I had a lot of these laying around, but I guess I don't. So I'm just going to toss this, and then I'm just going to repaint the other bezels. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a layer of primer on here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use, this is a lint-free, like a napkin, but it's made for when you paint cars and stuff. It's you use it when you're wiping everything down, like when people use acetone to wipe down a car before they paint it. I just had a bunch left over from when I painted my car, so I use them every once in a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe these down, and you want to make sure that you don't touch them where you're going to be painting with your hands, because your hands have greases on them. So I'm just going to wipe these down real quick. Make sure you get in the inside in there. Alright, so when I wipe it down with the tack cloth after these are dry, I'm actually going to wait to wipe it down in just a second when I grab the primer, and that way right before I primer, I'll just do the tack cloth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this, so I'm going to see what the fan looks like. It's not really a fan, so I'm just going to go over it, like I said before, in like a 50-50 overlap. I'm just going to do a light coat first, and then I'm going to let this dry completely, because this has silicones in it that if you don't let it dry completely, that it'll cause the silicone to start trying to escape while you're putting paint on. And if that silicone is escaping, it'll cause like a fisheye effect. Alright guys, so I just did one more coat. It looks pretty good. I don't see any grooves or anything, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off and go get something to eat. I'm going to let these dry. So it's been about 24 hours. It's actually been about 18 hours, I want to say. But right here on the can it says for it to be fully dry, it will be fully dry in 24 hours. So what I'm doing is I waited about 24 hours just to let these cure, just to let it harden up, so when I wet sand it doesn't like take too much off. But now I'm going to get working on wet sanding these. I'm going to use 1000 grit. Earlier I said that I was going to use 800 grit, but I don't actually have any 800 right now. So I'm going to sand these with 1000 grit, and then I'm going to start laying some paint and see how they turn out. I'm using 1000 grit wet dry sandpaper, so I'm going to sand it while it's wet, so it turns out a little bit better. But I'm not going to do too much. I'm just going to go over it to smooth it out and get out all the imperfections that the primer leaves. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is, just like before, I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to take this lint-free cloth, and I'm just going to spray a little bit of this on here. touch up anywhere where I might have touched with my hands, just because I don't want any greases on here that might affect the way the paint comes out. Alright, I'm going to get my fan ready. The fan is the how this tip projects, so just got that ready there. You can see what the fan looks like on here. So now I'm just going to go over here in a few even light mist coats. Alright, so there's coat number one. I'm going to let that dry for about 5 minutes and then I'm going to get back to it. So here goes one more coat. And once again, I'm going to do a mist coat, and then my final coat or coats is going to be medium. And I'll just show you how coat number two is coming out. I'm not going to get the camera too close. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to show you guys what it looks like. I don't want anything to fall on top of the wet paint here. But yeah, so that's pretty much what coat number two looks like. Alright, so here goes a medium coat. Alright, so here's another coat. Just because the whole thing was primered, it's a little bit harder to get good coverage with mist coats. Alright, so this might be my final coat. Alright guys, so this is pretty much how it turned out. I'm not like 100% pleased with the way it came out. There's a little piece of dust on here. Because if you look in the inside here, it still looks a little rough, and that's from the primer, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it is what it is. This is my first time trying it with primer. Hopefully that makes it hold up a little bit better when I install it. It'll last a little bit longer. But yeah, so that's pretty much how they turned out. This one turned out pretty good. I actually like the way it turned out. Come on. It's got a little bit of a thing here. You can actually notice it better on camera than in real life. But yeah, so that's how they turned out. Alright guys, so this pretty much sums up the video today. If this video helped you out at all, you know, hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing, because I'm going to have a lot more stuff to come. And I've got some stuff on my channel already, so if you have a 350Z or a G35 and any of this stuff applies to you, I'm going to be building my car a lot more than I have been recently. Just working on the shop is a little bit tedious, so alright, so I'll talk to you guys later. My next video will be the Hotchkiss sway bar video, which I should be releasing today. But other than that, BC coilovers are coming soon. I've been looking at a lot of different end links to put on my car, which is one of the main things that I want to do next is these coilovers and new end links for my sway bars. And if you guys have any experience with end links, I don't have any experience at all. So if you guys do, leave that in the comment section. And if you have any questions about anything in this video or any other video for that fact, you can leave that in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to help you out or whatever you need. So I'll see you guys in the next video.